I am on a mission to change the way people divorce. I do not believe it has to be as ugly, as expensive, as time consuming as it is for so many people. Coaching plays a huge role in how we're going to change the face of divorce from the ugliness it used to be into what I believe it can be. Karen Covy. Welcome to another episode of the Simply Retirement Podcast, where we want to empower and educate women to live your retirement on your terms. I'm your host, Eric Blake, practicing retirement planner with over 25 years of experience, founder of Blake Wealth Management, and I would not be the man I am today without the women in my life. As I've shared before, doing this podcast has opened so many doors for me to connect with incredible professionals doing meaningful work. I first heard today's guest, Karen Covy, on the Purse Strings podcast with Dr. Barbara Provost and Maggie Nielsen, two amazing women I've been fortunate enough to know now for a few years. Since then, Karen and I have had a chance to connect over the last couple of months, and I recently had the privilege of joining her on her Off the Fence podcast to talk about the complexities of Social Security planning when navigating or finding yourself on the other side of divorce. In just a short time, I've become a huge fan of her show, especially her coaching session episodes, which gives such a powerful window into how valuable divorce coaching can be. They've deepened my understanding of what so many women experience during these transitions and helped me better support my own clients through those conversations. So if you're navigating the emotional and financial challenges of divorce, or even just wondering how to prepare should that day ever come, this episode is for you. Karen Covy is a divorce coach, attorney, mediator, and host of the Off the Fence podcast. Karen Covy, welcome to the Simply Retirement Podcast.
Thank you, Eric. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So I'm so glad you're here. Again, we've got a chance to know each other just a little bit over the last several weeks. I'm so excited to have you on. We've been looking forward to this, or I've been looking forward to it. And I want to start with something that again, just really stood out to me. And I shared it right there at the top of the show. I am on a mission to change the way people divorce. That is such a powerful statement. If you wouldn't mind, just share what inspired that message and how does it shape the work you do now with clients?
A couple of things. And thank you for the question. I've been a lawyer for more decades than I care to admit to. And I started my own practice many, many decades ago, but I'd already been a lawyer for 10 years before I started my own practice. And when I did, I literally, opened up the office, new furniture. I had nothing, right? And I said to everybody I know, I will take any kind of case there is except divorce. And you know what they say, when you make plans, God or the universe or whatever you call the power that is laughs. Well, somebody was laughing at me because client after client kept coming and going, Karen, can you help me with my divorce? Karen, do you know a good divorce lawyer? Karen. And finally, I literally was sitting in my office. I threw up my hands and I said, okay, I get it. I'll do divorce. And when I went to divorce court, what I saw there shocked me. I mean, it didn't make sense to me. I had been in all kinds of different courtrooms practicing law in different areas for a decade. And it's one thing to put the CEO of a company that manufactured some drug that killed tons of people, and he did it on purpose and they knew, right? It's one thing to rip his face off in cross-examination. But when it's your spouse and you got to go sit next to them at your kid's soccer game, like there is no universe where that makes sense. And so from the get-go, I kept looking for a better way, which is why I became a mediator, which is why I went into collaborative divorce and on and on and on and on. And finally, at one point, I realized that there was a gap in what people think a lawyer is going to do and what a lawyer is really going to do. What do people think they need in divorce and what they really get in divorce? And coaching fills that gap. And so that's why I went with divorce coaching.
Well, I think one of the things I want to also revisit one of the conversations that I heard when you were with Barb and Maggie on the Purse Strings podcast, because you discussed how most people just jump straight into filing for divorce, or even choosing and without thinking about the different types of divorce, what the litigation or mediation or collaborative, without ever again really stepping back to evaluate their options. And you made the point of working with a coach first can now actually help you decide which of those options is going to be best beyond just, again, helping with the emotional aspects of this whole thing. Can you talk about why that is so important, is for women to understand that they actually have some choices as they're going through this?
Look, this isn't the 1950s anymore. There are many ways to do divorce, right? Back in the day, you went to a lawyer, you filed in court, you served your spouse, and you were off to the races. Now there are so many different ways to get through a divorce and to do a divorce. And the process you use to get through your divorce directly affects not only the outcome you get, but the experience you have of divorce in the meantime. And so it's important to choose the right divorce for you, the right process for you. Well, the problem most people have is they go to the lawyer first. What they don't understand is most lawyers don't do every kind of process. They're good at one thing or maybe two things. Well, so when you go into that lawyer's office, they're telling you not what process is best for you, but what they do. And so they're selling you on what they do. So you're never going to get the opportunity to choose your own divorce process. That's why working with a coach who understands what all your options are and can say, here's this, here's this, here's this, here's this, explain how everything works. And then, and this is the key point, explain to you which one is going to probably be best for you and why. Right? Because every marriage is different. Every divorce is different. And you've got to pick the process that fits your situation and your goals. And if you don't do that, you make a big mess, you spend a ton of money, and it's just so much more painful than it needs to be.
Well, I think one of the things that's interesting is, in the financial services world, so many people can call themselves financial advisors, whatever their background is, the different licensing, and it creates a lot of confusion for the consumer. But one of the things I find interesting for you is that you sat on that attorney side of the table. So you've seen how all that works and the ugliness and everything that goes into it, but then made the decision to more transition to the coaching aspect. What do you feel like is the biggest advantage of that? Or how does that play into your ability to communicate these different options and strategies and just the thought process?
It's huge, right? Because like I said, most attorneys specialize in one thing. And the other thing about attorneys is they're landlocked. Your license is only good in whatever states you're licensed in, right? Most attorneys are licensed in one, maybe two or three states, but that's about it. As a divorce coach, I help people all over the country, actually all over the world, which surprised me as much as it did anybody else, right? When people would call me from Australia or France or, Sweden or all the different countries and say, hey, can you work with me? And I take people from the point where they're trying to decide, do I stay or do I go, all the way through the divorce process and beyond, how do I rebuild my life? That's something no lawyer can do. I mean, do you need a divorce lawyer? Do you need legal advice in your divorce? Yes, 100%. I would never say to anybody you don't need a lawyer. However, the law is about 10% of anybody's divorce. The other 90% is psychology. It's emotions. It's finance. It's family. It's practical stuff. Where do you live? How do you have a conversation with your spouse? What pieces do you put into place? First, second, third, right? Do you move first? Do you tell your kids first? What do you do? How do you put all this together? Lawyers don't deal with all of that stuff. And even if they did, they're a very expensive option to do it at. Most lawyers these days are going to charge between, on the low end, $350 an hour, on the high end, closer to $1,000 an hour, right? So you don't want to be paying $1,000 an hour for somebody to give you common sense, practical advice about this is when you put your house up. This is what you do now. This is how you make a budget. This is all the things, right? And so a coach can help guide you to do the right thing at the right time in the right way, in the way that no lawyer can.
One of the things, I think you and I may have had this conversation as well, is, I find it very difficult to believe that a financial advisor can specialize in both the accumulation phase where we're saving for retirement and the distribution phase where we're trying to turn all that money into an income. Do you find that similar in your field as far as coaching? Is it more important to get coaching on the front end as you're going into divorce versus on the other side of divorce and now putting your pieces of your life back together? Is there one of those that's more important than the other? Or can the same coach help with both of those phases?
I'm going to answer like a lawyer. It depends. Okay. It depends on what you're dealing with. First of all, I work primarily on the front end of divorce. When you're trying to decide, do you stay or do you go? Because that's a place that I have found that people get stuck for years and years and years. And to a person, after they're done with the divorce, they're not looking back and saying to themselves, "Ooh, I jumped into this too fast." Most people are saying, "I waited too long. I wasted years of my life that I didn't have to." So I start with people earlier in the decision-making process, and planning and preparing makes such a difference in the outcome you get in your divorce that I work with people a lot there. Can I work with people on the back end? Yes, but there are people who specialize in that and they're going to do it better. What I will help people with on the back end more is parenting issues. Okay. Now you're already divorced, but you've got a high conflict spouse that's dragging you back into court every second day. How do you deal with that? How do you open the lines of communication? How do you protect yourself and your kids? Do you open the lines of communication? Do you parallel parent? All those kinds of things, because of the legal background I have, that informs all of that as well. So I help people on the back end primarily in that way.
So let's talk about that. So, you and I had this conversation as well that in terms of stats, it appears at least that overall divorce is trending down, but there's this one category, gray divorce or silver divorce or any number of terms you might be able to use, that has actually been increasing. So when we think about women that may be listening today and feeling uncertain about whether to stay or leave, again, with so much at stake emotionally, financially, how do you help them? What are some steps you take to help them make that decision without regret or as little regret as possible?
It's like the legal concept of informed consent. You cannot make a good decision if you don't understand what all of your options are. You can't make a good decision if you don't understand how this system and process works and get some idea of what it's likely to look like if you jump into it and go through it, right? So nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody can say to you, "Of course, this is what's going to happen. I wish I could do that. I would be very, very wealthy if I had that capability." But what I can say is this is what is likely to happen. This is what I've seen happen in decades of working with people going through a divorce. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to happen that way. And the problem that people have, that women have in gray divorce, is that there is a timeline. There is a very real timeline. If you wait too long, you get stuck. I have a client who, I've had several clients who have waited so long with spouses who, for instance, have addiction problems, are alcoholics. They get sick. They now have physical diseases in addition to the alcoholism, and they can't break free. Now you've got the guilt of, I've been married for 30 years. This person is sick. They are absolutely miserable, sometimes physically violent, often dealing with dementia. My whole world is upside down, and financially I don't have control and I can't get control. And now I'm too guilty to get a divorce. So when you're in that age range of looking at the gray divorce, understand that it doesn't get better. And there's a finite amount of time that you have to make a decision, and sooner is always better than later.
Well, and I think that's one of the things you talk a lot about. And one of the things I picked up from your coaching sessions is your ability to help steer people in a way that helps the decision making process. And you talk a lot about the importance of decision making. Can you explain what makes this stage so critical, and actually how coaching can help someone feel more confident in those choices?
Not everybody who's been in a long-term marriage, who's 50 plus years old, right? Not everyone is going to want to get a divorce. It's not the right decision for everybody. But if it's not the right decision for you, how can you make the life you have closer to the life that you really want, even while you stay married? Or do you have to get a divorce, right? So it's about exploring options, exploring scenarios, and exploring your own values and what you want for your life. Because as far as we know, we only get one shot at this, at least that we remember, right? So you got to make it count, and there are no do-overs. So it's about understanding your options, getting everything laid out for you, and talking through, okay, what does this look like? What does that look like? What does this look like? And which one lines up with who I am inside and how I want to live?
Well, what do you, from your experience, what do you see as typically maybe the bigger financial mistakes, or even just mistakes in general that you see when women are making this decision to divorce, especially later in life?
What women don't understand is like when they don't have any idea of what their financial situation is, they've never gone to the financial advisor. Their husband does all of the things, right? Now they can't evaluate their options because they don't even have the data to make the decision. And so that becomes tricky, right? And the other thing that women don't really appreciate is they think they've heard the word alimony. They think, oh, I've been married for 30 years. Of course he's going to support me forever. Guess what? When your spouse retires and they have no income and you have no income, there's no alimony. Right? So you might not be in the position that you think you're going to be in. So a lot of women, again, to the point of waiting too long to make that informed decision, and then they get to the point where they feel stuck or financially they are stuck, and then they have to make harder decisions of, okay, do I go back and try to get some sort of income stream? How do I make the numbers work? And that's really challenging if they don't know their numbers.
And here's an example. I would love to give you your input, and it's something I'm pretty passionate about on the financial advisor side and the responsibility of the financial advisor to bridge the gap. But we had a prospective client who reached out to me a couple of weeks ago, and she's 20 years of marriage, going through divorce, 18-year-old son. She's worried about being a single mom. That's part of the reason she reached out to me is she heard my story, raised by a single mom. But one of the first things she said was, he's had a financial advisor since we've been married. I've never spoken to him. Now, from my side of things, that angers me because how has the financial advisor never made any attempt to reach out to, I don't care if it's a birthday call, a client event, some way of, hey, I just wanted to reach out and let you know I'm here. In case something happens to him, I want you to know that you can call me. That was one of the things she asked me is it okay for me to call this financial advisor to see what we have? So again, I got upset from the financial advisor perspective, but just from your side of things, how would you encourage if there's a woman in that situation leading up to it, hopefully sooner rather than later, but just to say, you got to do this. You got to reach out to the financial advisor, get a better feel. You can't wait till now we're in a divorce in order to find out what we have.
Right. Here's the thing. Once divorce is in the air, once it's out in the open, information goes missing. And it's so much easier to get it on the front end before you're talking about divorce than to wait till you're in the middle of divorce and now you've got to deal with lawyers and subpoenas and expensive, document production and blah, 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 right? So for any woman, and I don't care if you're thinking about divorce, if your marriage is perfectly fine, I don't care who you are, you need to understand your financial situation. So you need to talk to your husband and say, I want to meet that financial advisor. Call the financial advisor and say, look, we need to talk. And I'm not good with this. I'm not familiar with this kind of information. You're going to have to walk me through it. And if that financial advisor isn't willing to do that, now you need to have a different discussion with your spouse to say, we got to find somebody else because this is not working for me. And you have to, and it's not even just divorce. What if your spouse dies? You're clueless. You don't have any idea what you have, where it is, what's going on. And by the way, there are a lot of women who miss things, right? Especially with everything digital, you don't have all the passwords, you don't have the usernames, you don't even know where to look. How are you ever going to find all the things you have? So the time to start is now. And, I don't care who you are, what your situation is. You need this data. You don't have to be involved in every day-to-day decision, but you've got to be involved in the relationship, in understanding what's there, and just sort of keeping an eye out, if nothing else.
Let's lead that into the next question then. So the idea of being the CEO of your own divorce, what does that mean? And how can women start to take ownership of this process?
If you are going through a divorce, most people, what they do is they come to the lawyer and they go, here's my life, here's my marriage, here's my divorce, do it. Right? And the lawyer but they don't realize that all the lawyer's going to do is the legal part. And remember, that's 10%, right? There's nobody coordinating. How do you deal with the financial end? Like, Do you sell the house? How do you make that decision? If you can afford to keep the house, if you're going to sell the house, what makes the most financial sense? And oh, by the way, at what point in the process do you start thinking about doing that? When do you talk about your assets? When do you, what do you do about if you have kids still, school districts, moving, talking to your kids, talking to your spouse? There are so many moving parts to divorce. Your lawyer is not going to figure any of that out for you. Like, period, full stop. So that's why, as a coach, I help empower my clients to become the CEO of their divorce, the quarterback of the team, use whatever analogy you want to use. But you're the one who's coordinating everything. And as a coach, because I've had so much experience in so many areas, I can tell you, okay, you need a financial advisor now, and this is what you're looking for. You need a realtor. You need a this, you need a that. And then you're coordinating all those moving parts yourself. And it has to be you. It can't even be the coach. I empower my clients to do that, but it's your life. And I tell my clients, and I've been doing this since I started practicing law in the divorce area, there is nobody that's going to care more about your divorce than you are. So you've got to put yourself in charge. And oh, by the way, when you do that, at the tail end, you're going to be a different human. You're going to have more confidence. You're going to be more sure of yourself, and you're going to know how to continue to be the CEO of your own life from that point forward.
Well, I think that's interesting. I think that's why, at least that's my interpretation of why we've connected so well, is back to this story I was telling you originally where she, 20 years of marriage, getting divorced. It's almost, I feel excited for what her future could hold, even though right now she's got a lot of uncertainty, because that's one of the things she was worried about. And you never know whether it's because she's doesn't know what they have, that she's worried about him hiding stuff, or does she really think he's going to be hiding stuff? But she asked me, I said, the best thing you've done is you've reached out, you've made a proactive step to call us. And it was then, okay, let me connect you to this forensic accountant. You might not need his services, but he's willing to have a 30-minute call just to talk about what's going on and give you some ideas. She wants their son is 18, so he's a senior. This is the last year. She wants to stay in the house, even though they have actually apparently determined that they're going to sell the house. She's like, well, can we stay in there for 6 months so he can graduate? I'm like, okay, we got to get you connected to the right people. We got to get you connected to real estate folks that can help guide you through these decisions. Very much like what you were talking about. We got to get these people connected to the right resources. And that's always step one is, I don't know what questions to ask. I don't even know who to ask, but you got to start somewhere.
It takes a team to get through a divorce really, really well. And so as a coach, what I help people do, I connect them just like you do, connect them to the right resources. I mean, for example, for people who have questions about Social Security, it's such a complicated area and you're brilliant at it. And the conversation we had on my podcast was so I was just geeking out on it because it can make such a difference to so many people, but you got to understand the rules. If you don't understand the rules of the game, you're not going to win. It's just that simple, right? And it's like that in every area, finance, housing, mortgages, every single aspect, college education. The other thing people don't think about is how you structure the custody and the money aspects with respect to your kid has a big impact on the FAFSA and what kind of college aid they get or don't get. So if you're smart and if you put together the right team and you put all those pieces together, you can get through this and end up on top of the heap instead of on the bottom of the pile.
Well, so let's talk about that. So if there's somebody out there who's maybe feeling stuck, maybe they're afraid of starting over or worried about the financial unknowns, what, in your opinion, would be one or two practical steps that they could take now to start regaining control or try to get a handle on things as they move forward?
I think is what we've already talked about. Number one, if you don't understand anything about your own personal finances, start. Meet your financial advisor, talk to your spouse, you don't need to get involved in the day-to-day management of the money and paying the bills, but you do need to understand how does it happen? What do you have? What do you owe? All the things, right? So that's step one. Step two, get a divorce coach. Get somebody who can help you put together the team and put all the pieces together and help you think about things that it never crossed your mind to think about, because it's not, I think it was Mark Twain that said something like, I'm not going to get this quote right, but it's not what you know that hurts you. It's what you think you know for sure that you don't know. Right? So if you don't even think to ask questions, you're never going to get the information. And so that's what a professional brings to the table, is say, hey, did you think about this and this and this? And you go, oh, okay. And now you can start working on things and putting together that plan. You will do so much better if you go through your divorce with a strategy and a plan. And that encompasses more than just the legal end, but the whole divorce process.
So, but I want to make sure we get a chance to share how to connect with you, and I know you think you've got a free resource we're going to be able to share as well. But what does that look like? If somebody wants to reach out to you, what does that process look like? Is it initial consultation? How does the ball get started?
It's really easy. You go to my website, KarenCovy.com, fill out a contact form, and I or someone from my team will get back to you, usually within 24 to 48 hours, unless it's a holiday.
Perfect. And are there any other social media, any other resources, websites, anything else you'd like to share?
I am everywhere at Karen Covy. So, and I'm in all the YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I'm everywhere.
Awesome. And again, just as another shout out for the podcast, I have learned so much from it. I listen to every episode, especially those coaching episodes, because the guidance, the wisdom you share, I think at least I've heard at least a couple of them, if not more, respond with, "You're great," because it at least gave them a direction that they didn't have before they started that phone call. So I love it. And that's just another shout out to for your podcast.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And the Off the Fence podcast is available everywhere you get podcasts, Apple and Spotify and all of the places. And Breakthrough Divorce Coaching is one segment or one special series I'm doing in the podcast.
Awesome. Well, we definitely will make sure we include all of these links and resources in today's episode show notes. Karen, thank you so much for joining me. This has been such an insightful and empowering conversation. If you're preparing or navigating divorce, remember, having the right guidance and strategy can make all the difference. Again, feel free to reach out to Karen to connect and learn more about her services, listen to her podcast. I think the free download was the free divorce process comparison chart. Is that out there at the KarenCovy.com/free chart?
Yes, it is. And that's to go back to what we talked about. It's like, how do you choose which process? This is a one-page cheat sheet.
Perfect.
Very simple to use, makes it all clear.
Perfect. So again, we'll make sure that link is in the show notes as well. That is it for today's episode. For all the links and resources mentioned, you can visit the simplyretirementpodcast.com. Please don't forget to like, follow, and share the show. Until next time, please remember, retirement is not the end of the road. It's the start of a new journey.
That's it for today's episode of the Simply Retirement Podcast. We hope you found our insights and advice helpful in planning for a fulfilling retirement. Don't forget to take action on what you've learned today. Visit our website at blakewealthmanagement.com to learn more about our firm and review our Simply Retirement Roadmap process to get you on the right path to the retirement you deserve. And don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and we look forward to helping you achieve your retirement goals. Remember, retirement is not the end of the road. It is the start of a new journey. So embrace it and make the most of it. Until next time, take care. Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security, or engage in any specific trading strategy. Results will vary. Past performance is no indication of future results or success. Market conditions change continuously. This commentary reflects the personal opinions, viewpoints, and analyses of Blake Wealth Management. It does not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, their clients, or their employees. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by Blake Wealth Management or RFG Advisory, or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory a registered investment advisor, Blake Wealth Management, and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place.